Assalamu alaikum students. This lecture is about verbs, different categories of verb, and when we write sentences, different types of sentences, how we have a choice to choose different types of verbs according to different forms and according to different context or situation. So here we in this lecture. After listening to this lecture, you will know all those about all those categories. Here, the first one that is important is auxiliary verb. Auxiliary verb helping verb, a supporting verb are verbs that are used to complete the meaning of other primary or main verb in a sentence. For example, if there is a main verb, no doubt in a sentence, and you will have to add auxiliary or helping verb, and when this helping verb is added to a main verb, then it helps in making the sentence completely meaningful. For example, if we say I am learning, so learning is a main verb and am is used with it in order to make it more complete, in order to make the sense totally acceptable. The three primary auxiliary verbs may be three primary जो auxiliary verbs हैं, they are be, have and do, and are used to create different tenses. To these three verb forms, helping verb forms be, have, do, have three main functions. They are used with different tenses. They are used to form negative, or they are used in interrogative sentences, namely to ask questions. For example, I am working on my project. This is present continuous tense, and am working is the m in the if you will focus on the am working, and then you see that working is a main verb. A verb am is used with it in order to make it in order to make it more complete, or to give it a particular tense. She does not work here anymore. Here you can see that work is the main verb and does not has been attached to it in order to make it in order to give it a negative sense. Have you seen my keys? Here again you see that have has been used with seen, and it has been used in order to make it an interrogative sentence. There are also modal auxiliaries. These are also auxiliary verbs just called modal verbs, which are used to express modality. Modality means that they give different aspects to the sentences. For example, they can express possibility, likelihood, ability, permission, obligation, or future intention. These are can, could, will, would, shall, should, must, may, and might. They are distinguished by the fact that they are unable to conjugate into different forms. You cannot have a different form of them. They are distinguished by the fact that they cannot be conjugated into different forms. They are only followed by a verb in this form. For example, you can say I can walk, you can say I can drink, you can say I shall go. You always use base form of verb with them. For example, I will be there tonight. Future intention, she can write very well. This shows ability. May I be excused from the table? This shows permission. We must finish this today. This shows obligation. Another type of category of verb that we can use in a sentence according to different contexts is infinitive. Infinitives are the most basic construction of a verb. These are the basic construction of verb. When we talk of a verb as a general concept, we usually use this form of verb, which is the uninflected. And this you can see that you can say that this is uninflected or unchanged base form of a verb, and we with that base form of a verb we mostly attach to. For instance, we can say to walk, to run, to read, to learn, to act. These are infinitives. Infinitives can be used as nouns in a sentence, can be used as adjective in a sentence, or adverb in a sentence, but they do not actually function as a verb. Mostly how we use verb after subject. But if you use two infinitive, you can use it not as verb, but they can be used as nouns, adjectives, or adverbs. They are used to express an action as a concept rather than what is being done or performed. For example, I love to run. Here you can see to run. To run functions as a noun. I wish I had something to do. To do as to infinitive functions as an adjective. I run a lot to stay healthy. Here it functions as an adverb, not as a main verb. Here the next category that is very much important is participles. Participles are also a kind of verbs that either function with auxiliary verbs. You can add auxiliary verbs with them, or you cannot add auxiliary verbs with them to create the continuous and perfect verb tenses. You can use these participles in order to give certain tenses, aspect of tenses to the to the sentences. For example, every verb has two participle form. Every verb that we use in a sentence has two forms. For example, a present participle and a past participle. Both basically these two are the basic forms. For example, the present participle is always the base form of a verb plus ing. Present. If you look at the present participle, here you use base form of a verb, and with that you use ing. Although the spelling of some verbs change very slightly to accommodate the suffixes ing, every verb takes ing for the present participle. We use present participle with the auxiliary be. Be is used as a name of a group of certain helping verbs, and those group members of those groups are is, am, are, was, were. Instead of using individually using each, we use only be in order to represent all the helping verbs in the group. So you can see here that can't you see that I am reading it. It says, you can see here, I am reading is read is base form of a verb, and ing has been used with it in order to give it a continuous tense. I was watching that. This is, instead of am, we have used was, so it is related with the past action. They will be arriving soon. Here you can also see it is a future continuous tense. The past participle is as contrary, the same as the verb simple past form, which is made by adding d or ed to the end of a verb. However, many verbs are irregular, which we do not follow, by using which we do not follow the d or ed pattern. They have different past tense and past participles. You have already know. For example, you can say write, wrote, written. They have different two different forms. The past participle is used with the auxiliary verb to form the perfect tenses. You can see here past participle is used with certain auxiliary verbs, and that auxiliary verb may be have, and when have, had, or has is attached with the main verb, we can use that sentence in perfective aspect. You have worked long enough. This is for present perfect tense. We had seen too much. Past perfect tense. They will have arrived before we get there. Future perfect tense. We can also use participles as adjectives to add to description to nouns. Then you can see the next, you can look at the next category of verbs, and that verb category is action verbs. What are action verbs? Action verbs can also be called dynamic verbs. Describes an active process that results in an effect. They mostly relate to the processes that are active. For example, I ran to the school, she read a book, they talked during lunch, we swam for an hour. I think this concept is quite clear for you. Then, as against this concept, we have another category of verbs, and that category of verb is stative verb. In contrast to action verbs, stative verbs describe state of being of a subject. These include linking verbs such as be. You can use be here. Be means is, am, are, was, were. Are verbs of the senses. Are particularly those verbs that are related with the senses, which are used to describe or rename a subject using a predicative adjective. Predicative adjective, you already know that the kind of adjectives that are used to describe a noun, but they are used after the particular noun, not before the particular noun. For example, I am hungry. You can see here I am subject, am is auxiliary verb, hungry is stative verb. You sound tired. It has also the same structure. You is subject, sound is auxiliary verb, and tired is the kind of stative verb because it shows the state of being of anything. Then there are also many other sentences here which have the same example, which can be used as the same example. Light verbs. Light verbs do not carry unique meaning on their own, but instead they rely on another word or words that follow them to become meaningful. They don't have individual meaning, but they are used in combination with other words or a particular word in order to make it meaningful. Common example include have, do, have, or take. For example, do your homework, or we can say take some tea. For you can also say I took a shower, or you can, these are particular verbs that can be used with particular slots and with particular pattern, and depending you will have different meaning depending on the word or words it is paired with it. For example, we can say please don't make a mess, we can say please make your bed. Then phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs are verbs that pair with prepositions or particles to create unique specific meaning. They are largely idiomatic, which means that they don't make literal sense according to the individual parts. When you will just look at them, you cannot predict the meaning from the pairs that have been used together. I can't believe that you are giving up. The plane took off an hour late. He has been looking after his mother. Conditional verb. Conditional verbs. The term conditional verb is used to refer to a verb construction that are used in conditional sentences which describe a hypothetical outcome that is relied upon another conditional situation being true. These sentences most often use the condition if with the one of the verb to express the conditional situation, and often use modal auxiliary verb to describe the hypothetical outcome. Mostly modal auxiliaries are used here, and if type of constructions are used here. For example, if say the leaves will fall if the wind blows. Yeah, if you had done your work, you could have had an ice cream. You can see here if has been used here and could has been used here. This type of construction is used in the use of conditional verbs. Causative verbs. Causative verbs means to indicate, they are used to indicate that a person or thing is causing another action or event to happen. And they are generally followed by noun, a pronoun, or an infinitive verb that is not causative, which describes the action that was caused to happen. You can see here, he let his dog run through the field. You can see here, the bigger house enabled the family to have more room for their belongings. The new dress code forced the students to wear different shoes. The law requires a person to obtain a permit before hunting on a public land. Then you have last two categories. One is fictative verbs. Fictative verbs are used to indicate a condition or state of a person, place, or thing that results from the action of a verb. For example, she was appointed commissioner by the mayor. The committee elected Mr. Fuller chairman of the board. The jury judged the defendant not guilty. You can see here the reflexive verbs. Reflexive verbs have the subjects that are also their direct objects. That means that the action of a verb is both committed and received by the same person or thing. The object of transitive reflexive verbs are usually reflexive pronoun. For example, you can say here, I accidentally burned myself with the hair dryer. The problem seems to have worked itself out in the end. This car doesn't drive properly anymore. You can see here that when we use verb as the main constructive unit in a sentence, it means that we are not using a particular type of verb. We have a lot more group of verbs that we can choose, and we can choose, and when we can write, and we can choose them, and we can use different types of sentences, or we can construct different kind of sentences. You must know the use of such verbs, or the nature of such verbs, or the scope of such verbs, and then you can construct true meaningful sentences. So this is the end of the lecture, and next time we will start with nouns.